Dinger in the bot lane. So if that is a flex that they were holding as well, a type of three-way flex that could be really powerful, but gonna be looking. I agree. Most likely at that jungle role, Karthus can get a lot of value out of the ultimate just sitting in there farming up. But if it is that Karthus jungle, then I'm looking to see some lanes that support it by being self-sustaining.
Yeah, and that is, I think, going to be the next question is if these lanes are going to be strong enough to hold out on their own. Is we're getting some aggression out of the bot lane. Of course, I think Blitzcrank still technically a flex with those buffs we saw last season, but most likely going to be a support trying to punish that Kog'Maw Lulu because if one of them gets hooked, it is going to be a very, very bad time.
Already it's showing some aggression. Karthus actually also should be noted as a potential flex to the bottom lane. Obviously, with the Draven lock-in, that's not going to be the case. But Karthus AP carry is definitely a champion that's an outside shot in some cases, in my mind. I like the aggression though. Picking up that Draven, you expect to see that as the matchup into the Kog'Maw Lulu. You want to go aggressive, and by all inning on getting priority in that lane, getting pressure down in the bot lane, that's giving them a very clear win condition to play towards.
And especially up against a lane like Kog'Maw Lulu that just want to sit there for so much of the laning phase, the Draven and the Blitzcrank have so much presence, so much early damage that they can start to really disrupt what Marquette's already trying to do. As Marquette's going to round out their first half with a Maokai, give themselves a really strong tank, can put that in the jungle, can put it top if you really want to, but this Maokai has really stepped up as just such a playmaker out of the jungle, and especially this Kog'Maw makes it to the late game. All of the CC that he can provide is going to be so, so valuable.
See how Maokai has fallen in priority, not being necessarily a first pick worthy champion after being nerfed here, but still definitely a champion that you want to keep in mind. Can be really annoying with the saplings, is pretty good at figuring out with those where the enemy jungler is at times. And then, like you said, the CC setup, very important. Looks like Marquette is going to be playing a team fight variety, and I expect that once we get to the late game, if they can get to the late game on even terms, they're going to be in a very strong position.
Especially with ornaments going to be coming in the late game as well. That extra little oomph to all of your carries and your tanks is very, very beefy front line, looking for those team fights, as you said. And now looking on the opposite side to Butler, their comp is very, very reliant, at least outside of the Karthus, on doing well early on. As Karthus turns out to be a flex, it will be sent mid. The Yasuo for the top side, and the Rek'Sai for Kim. This this lane, this whole setup for Butler looks like they're gonna hit level 4 outside of the Karthus and just try to go in and try and cause as much disruption as possible.
I like Yasuo as the Ornn counter pick here, going to be looking to carry. They needed to add a little bit of DPS to their comp as well. It makes a lot of sense in that sense. Maybe we'll see a flex of Karthus towards top lane, Yasuo mid lane. Not 100% sure. I'd expect the Yasuo to go into the Ornn because I think that's the better matchup, especially with Zillion being in the mid lane. But either way, I think that being able to wind wall that Ornn ultimate is going to be a pretty important feature here for Butler throughout this game. They're going to want to make sure that they're finding picks that avoid full-on 5v5s, but especially if they can find picks in side lanes, they get 1-on-2s, if they can get like 2-on-3s, and then get a Karthus all over the top, that's going to be very impactful, as it does look like it may end up being Newtly playing this Karthus top.
And I'm excited for that one. It could be, I mean, it could be a lane swap. Who knows? Levi and Noodly wanting to mix it up as far as their lane assignments. But that point you brought up about the Karthus, that global ultimate presence, the fact that every even fight really isn't that even when you consider the potential for a Requiem to give that extra 200-300 damage that you really need for some of these kinds of moments, especially if you're looking at a Maokai that's going to be tough to chop through. And the extra heals and shields that Lulu can bring to the table, the extra punch over the top, I think, is going to be really, really impactful if Carthago doesn't get a really strong start or if Kim isn't able to start one-shotting people early on the Rek'Sai.
There'd be a lot of early priority going over to Butler here. I'm excited to see how Nat Dog plays out this Blitzcrank because with a Draven, there's a lot of incentive to stay in lane, try to look for 2v2 kills. But Blitzcrank is also a very good roaming champion. Alongside this Rek'Sai that Kim's picked up, we might get to see a lot of fighting in the solo lanes. Maybe even some invades coming out, try to mess with the pathing. And the real task here for Marquette is going to be making sure that they don't fall too far behind. They should know that they don't need to contest objectives. They don't really need to get early dragons. They want to be able to force team fights, but their DPS is good enough around Baron that they should be able to do that there. So if they end up getting in a situation where they're 4,000 gold behind at 20 minutes, if they can keep it at that level, once we get to 35 minutes, they're just going to start winning as long as they can stay grouped, which they should be doing.
Yeah, it's a race to the late game for Marquette, and early chaos and constant fighting is the name of the game for Butler. As we're going to go to a quick break as we allow the spectator delay to finish on up, and then we will be right back with the season opener of the Big East CLOL, Butler up against Marquette. Welcome back to the Rift as Butler and Marquette starting off their seasons. And it looks like Butler are already all grouped together, might be looking for some shenanigans. And this is what we saw a bunch last season. They group up as 5, they run down the bot side and see if they can find anyone. But it looks like the 5-point for Marquette is going to work out just fine into this.
They could be in a difficult situation if they walk in and check this. They didn't immediately get out to that 5-point. They don't have vision coming in. So if there's a flash play to be made, it could potentially work out. The sweeper gonna catch the ward. I think that they're just gonna be able to clear the ward, and that's all they'll get.
And the fact that they get spotted, there's no need to overdo it. Quick Spot was playing carefully, trying to make his way back to tower, but won't make any difference in the long run, as we see a couple resets for a scanner or a ward trinket, depending on what you need to upgrade to and swap back out of. As across the map, we mentioned that this game, it really feels like Marquette, they're just trying to stall, get to that 5v5, but Butler, they're the ones who really have to impact the pace of this game.
I think that it's very interesting, the itemization choices already. We're seeing that the longsword makes sense. So longsword start for Draven going to work out here just fine, I think. But going the cull for quick spot, showing a lot of confidence in the ability to walk up to the wave. But I think that with the cull, it's going to be very difficult to do any PvP at all. Like it already was. Like if you get hooked, you're gonna die in this lane. But if you're playing around the cull, you kind of need to find ways to CS, or else you're not going to be able to get to that mark very quickly where you get the gold cash in. So that's showing a lot of confidence to be able to do the CS, even though there's a lot of other reasons why you might not be able to.
Yeah, as early on, Levi getting confident on Geeks Bro, gonna flash over the top and will find first blood with the double summoners used, as the Zillion just was not ready for the explosiveness out of the Yasuo level 2.
Expecting to have the priority there with the range versus melee matchup, but up against Yasuo, whenever you're standing in minions, you gotta be cognizant of the fact that he can just dash in, start landing his Qs, able to find the knock up there, gets a lot of auto attacks down. The ignite itself might have been very close to killing, but flashing over the wall just secures the first blood. Levi playing things well early on.
And looks like Kim trying to keep that trend going, as blue buff not stolen, but the wolves were. This is going to mean complete bot side jungle control, which means you're not just going to get the blue, but you're also going to get the Gromp as well. So the entire bot side of the jungle taken away from the Cyber Gromp, and that's a huge advantage for Kim, who's really looking to step up, as actually it looks like Cyber Gromp just wants to come in for a gank instead of trying to counter jungle, but post-mortem's so low he might not be able to do anything. Might be waiting for the timing on the rock. Does get the knock up, gets the brittle, looking for more off the root, and that E will mean a little bit of damage, forces the flash out. Not much mana to work with. Trying to juggle those Skittles, find an option. Postmortem's dancing for his life, and Geekbro's gonna walk up, get an assist, and Cybergromp picks up a counter kill, and Noodly gets a Skittle from the grave to make it a 1-for-1.
I was gonna say that I thought Noodly was playing that a little bit disrespectfully, knowing that you're on the invade on the opposite side of the map. There's not a lot of options for Cybergromp. With the Maokai and with the jungle changes going into this offseason, it's very difficult to get even more than just like one camp on the counter invade. So I think that the invade was a really good choice by Kim in being able to get that advantage early on is going to pay big dividends, as we can already see in the CS numbers. But I was thinking on the other side, you know, Newly, there's not a lot of options for Cybergromp to be doing, so it makes sense that a gank is very likely coming your way, pushes all the way in, able to get really good trades off against Postmortem, and then pays it off by getting the counter kill Postmortem himself.
Oh no, there's the hook we were waiting for. A quick spot caught up. Flash has already been burned. The heal used very, very late. The last couple axes is going to be fine. Exhaust just keeping Quick Spot alive as the counter in from Cybergromp. Carthago spaced away from the auto as Cybergromp gets number 2 on the board, and the hook works against Butler's bot lane.
Great timing on these ganks coming out from Cybergromp, able to set up the kill in the bot lane. A little bit over aggression coming through, but we might have a counter gank coming through very late here.
And Kim wants something back, especially with Quick Spot being so low, but just no timing available is going to mean that's it as Postmortem takes a chunk of damage. Here comes the Requiem, and it's just off by a couple damage points. Manages to find the last caster creep, and Postmortem just barely staying alive.
Not quite going to be able to get the execute with the first strike instead of Dark Harvest. Still think that first strike's the right choice here. Going to be getting a lot of extra gold off of that. Forcing out the recall. Going to get a preferable back on the back end of this wave getting pushed in, as well as Butler picking up the first Drake here with this prio that they've had constantly around the bot lane. The gank coming through makes no difference, and we're already starting to see a pretty big gold lead developing in favor of Butler. They're able to get the first Drake, and they're up about 1,000 to boot.
And the 1,000 is, I think, really right where you want it. It's on the Yasuo and the Karthus. Of course, you'd love to have a chunk more of that gold on the Draven, but still, yeah, those advantages coming through in the top and mid lane. Answered back in the jungle, but Kim, I think, is still going to be pretty happy with all the pressure that they've been able to put together and has those Predators online. So not looking to be super flashy in the duel, but really just looking to race people down and be that extra chunk of damage needed.
Well, Carthago hasn't been able to cash out on a kill, but with the priority that Butler's bot lane has had, they've made it really difficult for Quickspot to get any CS, and they're setting up a freeze here, so this is completely disgusting. There's just no way for Marquette to be able to respond in the bot lane here. This is the worry that I had with the Cull coming in. I'm a big fan of Cull in general, but in this situation, having the Cull is just going to be counterproductive because there is no way to step up and farm here. Quickspot is on the verge of just being forced to die.
And NatDog trying to apply that pressure, just walking up past the wave, and that's the power that these freezes offer you in the bot lane when you do have that early kill potential and you're up against someone so weak as an early Kog'Maw going Cull to start, no less. You don't get that extra HP or sustained from one of the Doran's items. Instead, you're all in on the farm, and maybe the rationale is I'm farming anyway, but you don't even have the stats to let you get into it. Is Kim and Levi gonna use their drafted combo? Good counter from Geeksbro to keep Cybergromp alive for just a moment. Stun out, and now in the bot lane as well. Quickspot just gonna be sent to the Shadow Realm by the ruined Draven, and we'll find a little extra damage. So 1 kill on the bot side for Butler.
Even trying to step up into EXP range of that freeze is proving pretty impossible. And the worst part about it is that on the back end of this, it's possible to maybe even continue the freeze, but also they could just quick push the wave, get the quick reset. And now, if we check the individual gold, Carthago is huge up against Quickspot with that CS advantage. And we talked before about how the Draven wasn't maybe as far ahead as they wanted. Well, now he sure is.
I mean, a BF gold, BF amount of gold ahead, so that is just a huge lead in the bot lane, or I guess now at this point the Noon Quiver lead, if you want to get modern with it. I'm gonna date myself, as gotta love just the good old-fashioned 1300 gold back, get a big sword, slap your opponents in the lane, and I've got a feeling that's what's going to be happening with Carthago going for that BT start, whereas on the other side it is just scraps for Quickspot.
I think that you're right that it's going to be a BT start, but what I had in mind when I saw the items in inventory was that it was going to be Immortal Shield Bow, which could be the right option here, but now we're getting a dive top.
Also very true, as Postmortem gonna have to really dance around this one. Gets damage onto Kim, will be traded out, but a fantastic way to start things off in the top side, or not start things off, but keep things going, keep things even. Is now Carthago and Cybergromp very close, as there's the hook, there's the flash, there's the twisting advance coming out as they're looking for a kill onto Quickspot to try and respond. Natdog's going low, but there's just no damage on this Kog'Maw. Heal and shield used just to keep him alive, as the Requiem finds nothing, and lots of blinking health bars.
And that's why you draft the Karthus. You want to make sure that you're going to have the extra pressure in the side lanes. It's the opposite of the Shen, where instead of doing the pressure by having that extra shield for your teammates, you're just dropping a bunch of extra damage. It's a lot like Gangplank in some ways, but they needed to have more magic damage on the team, so it makes sense to go with the Karthus instead. I mean, they first picked it, but they drafted around it in such a way that he's going to get a lot of purchase out of that ultimate, out of that first strike, and now with the Leandries complete, that's going to be even more the case.
And I was just looking at this bot lane and how rough this is for Quickspot. I mean, he's 2.5 levels behind, just barely hitting level 6. Only has 35 CS at 11 minutes. It has just been a clinic in pressure from the bot lane. And I mean, just thinking about Marquette as a whole, they want to make it to the late game, but with what damage? This Kog'Maw was really their only out. They've got tanks, they've got supports, but just the Kog'Maw to try and offer any sense of damage, they're all damage.
Yeah, and with the way that Butler's all damage, you can make the argument that it would be okay to be a single, maybe 1.5 damage dealers on the side of Marquette, because they're not up against any big beefy tanks. But when you fall behind, now they're going to have Bloodthirster. Now they're going to have Immortal Shield Bow coming up on Levi as soon as he's back after having been just sitting on tier 2 boots for quite a while here. But you're going to have a lot more difficult time killing them. And then on the opposite side, you're going to be able to potentially kill Karthus, but he can still do his thing if you kill him, so that doesn't help all that much.
Exactly, and just looking at how delayed Marquette's item spikes are, Geeks Bro building towards that Rod of Ages, it's going to come in so late. Is now Noodly actually going to get ganked up. It looks like Marquette are trying to stick to their 1 point of pressure in the top lane. Both tank ultis used, and now the extra chunk is going to be present. Brittle proc not found, so it's a big chunk of percentage HP damage. Not going to go the way of Marquette, as both Cybergromp and Postmortem are so low. Noodly has no mana, have to wait for the timing. Puppet gets caught up, tries to huge by himself. Quickspot getting dove, but a fantastic polymorph out of Upper is going to keep things going. The reset on the tower aggro going to keep the Rek'Sai. Dago's going to clean up as Natdog drops the ultimate to find that final kill. A great dive execution by Butler off of a great defense from Marquette.
Perfect timing on the Void Rush there to make sure that the turret aggro stays on Kim all the way until one more shot would have killed him. able to set up both kills in the bot lane. Cashing out once again is Carthago, going to be even further ahead off of that. Third plate picked up. We'll see if they can maybe even pick up a fourth before they reset, but they're going to be very rich off of their next back.
Yeah, and I was looking at this BT start, and I was thinking, do you ever just go Mythicless and go straight into IE now that you only need 40% for it to proc?
Could be the case. I mean, there's definitely some situations where that would be helpful. I imagine what we're going to see. Oh, I'm already proven wrong. I see the items come into the inventory. My thought was the next item is going to be something like a collector to just continue snowballing off of this. But with that BF sword coming in now, I think that you may be on the right track here. It's not going to be Mythicless all game, but it's going to be a second item coming in with the IE, and it's going to be a ton of damage coming out. One axe is going to be like 40% HP.
It's going to be like the fourth item Mythic. You go Essence Reaver third, you go Gale Force fourth or something for a little extra execute, and you're just killing people. That's your job. Is now Kim trying to do the same, but you're diving on to a Zillion who still has ultimate up. I'm not sure about this play. Of course, Levi waiting in the wings is going to pop that chrono shifts on the bot side. Countered pressure. The exhaust does absolutely nothing, and who cares about a resurrect? Is it's action in every single lane. Postmortem trying to take advantage of the Requiem timing is going to be able to answer one back, but everything else falls in favor of Butler across the map.
It was kind of well timed out here for the Karthus ultimate to be able to come down. There were two skirmishes going on outside of the top lane, ending up being the trade with the top lane, getting the kill with Postmortem. Postmortem is about in the best place of anyone on Marquette right now. 2-1 and 2 on the Orange, going to be completing that Anathemas first, getting to level 11 at a pretty good timing, so you're going to start seeing those upgraded Ornn items coming through pretty soon. Oh and the hook comes down.
That's death. That is just death, and Carthago gonna snatch that one up with the axes. Love the ultimate coming off from the side. And it's all in Butler's favor. They've got a 9k gold lead at 15 minutes. They're going to be picking up this Herald. The Cyber Gromp going to try and do something. But it's just the tanks for Marquette who have any sort of... And it's really, I think, going to come down to Butler needing to make a mistake on closing this game with the lead that they have, and this might be one of them. A root in the mid lane with a bunch of members around. This is surely going to be Levi going down. He wants to get quick spot in response, but it seems they're going to hand this one over to the Kog'Maw as a big chunk of gold going into the Void's pocket.
Now with all of these members coming into the mid lane, they're going to finally let Quickspot get some farm up to 69 now, getting pretty close to cashing out that call. That'll be a nice little payday after getting abused in the early stages of the game, finally starting to be a little bit better spot. Postmortem may be looking for another solo.
And it looks like the Ornn damage is just going to be too much for Noodly. You're not on a tank, you're on a mage, you got to respect it. And with no more Call of the Forge God, that should be it. The flash forced away by Kim's presence, and nearly another opportunity for Marquette to keep this top lane alive. But it does seem like they're going to have to keep stalling with moments like that to give their team time.
Postmortem still doing pretty good here. I think that once we get a second item coming through for Noodly, it could be more difficult in the 1v1. It's going to be the completed. It's Archangels for one more moment here before upgrading to the Seraph's Embrace, but that's going to be a lot of extra damage coming through, especially with the Requiem that has to be thought about in these fights. Trying to start up this Drake, Marquette trying to go against the grain.
Yeah, they're trying to play on the timing from Noodly not having teleport quite yet, and they're getting this to half, but it looks like Noodly will be here by the time the fight starts, and a huge disadvantage for Marquette should they choose to fight this, and Carthago's just going to flash on a quick spot. That'll be a bunch of resources invested, and remember, there's no Call of the Forge God. It was used earlier. The Dragon's low. It's getting reset. The fight's still going. Big Blitz ulti to separate the field as Quickspot's still alive. Kim answers on a Cyber Gromp. There's no smite for one, and the rest of Marquette falls as Butler play with their pockets and find the win with their wallets.
We can see kind of the ideas there about what Marquette wanted to do with this comp. At the beginning of the fight, it looks pretty decent. You know, they're able to get a decent chunk of damage down onto the enemy carries. But at the end of the day, the Drake resets, and once they're still in the pit after that, they run out of their strengths. Quick Spot is the only method of dealing damage left, and not able to do very much when at your range of auto attack. You're just going to get hit with a hook, you're going to get hit with all of the axes. And well played there on the side of Butler to convert on their lead. Up past 10,000 gold now, past 11,000 gold even. We talked about how if it's 3,000, 4,000 gold, then maybe there's some opportunities for Marquette to hold on. That's a lot more difficult with this big of a deficit.
Certainly is. Now, actually, with Carthago backing there, it's going to mean Noodly is all alone. Another Call of the Forge God used, another kill onto the Karthus. But all of these kills have been a little extra gold for Postmortem, but that's about it. It hasn't materialized in any topside pressure. It hasn't turned into any sort of lead that the team can work with. And NatDog is just going to bring Quickspot back to his death. Just wants to try and find the solo. Will rely on the extra chunk of damage from Kim. And that will be it. Could be a punish out of Geekspro, trying to do what he can on the Zillion. Drops the slow, drops the bombs, and there is little more to be done after the tunnel away.
Well, this is a complete marksman moment. Not able to 1v1 the enemy support. Quick Spot just in a difficult position right now. Ooh, we got another fight top.
That was a nice unstoppable to avoid the knockup, but there was still just too much damage coming out of this now 3-1 and 5. Yasuo, who's also opting for the IE second, going back to those roots on the Yasuo. Feeling very good about that IE second. And with Baron about to spawn at 20 minutes, Butler know that they need to find ways to end this game soon, and that is certainly one of the options.
Turbo, I keep seeing these trades coming through from Levi, and I'm like, now we gotta fight.
Not even a fight, just an explosion, just a death onto one as they're trying to find some vision into the pit. Cybergronk looking for the flash, and it is going to be a smite secured by Kim. Carthago runs over the back line, and everyone else dies in the pit. Postmortem, the only one alive for Marquette, and the purple buff on all 5 members of Butler.
And just like that play, the plays are developing so quickly that it seems like I'm mid-sentence every time there's someone dying on the side of Marquette. But I think that with the Baron buff, this is going to be enough to start pushing towards the base. It's going to be truly the mid-inhib down, and top lane's not looking much healthier.
No, it is not. It's just Postmortem able to hold on. This inhibitor is going to go down. Carthago smartly walking away from Kim. Don't want to chunk out your own junglers. Are already so low. Will back on a ward, but that shouldn't mean much. As for Marquette, they're going to try and turtle, but I'm really looking to Butler to not drop this lead. They've got Soul coming up. It's just Cloud Soul, but for their composition, it's still pretty useful trying to run down the other team. And this is a great opening for Butler, a team that has struggled in the past to close out games. If they can find a way to do it very quickly off this early lead, I think it'll be a great boost of confidence for the team looking to game 2 and just to start this season.
Got Baron buff for another minute and a half here. Should be able to get at least one more inhibitor, I think. Levi looking at potentially setting up a play, but multiple plays coming through now.
Not sure about Geek Bro staying this far forward. All 5 members are here to cash in on that assist gold. Carthago will find the extra cash in on some more stacks. And it is just the same story we have seen all game, where it's Butler one step ahead, Butler with so much more damage. And now they've got the Baron, they've got everyone, they have an open inhibitor, and are just trying to walk this game down. The Requiem is popped, Pupper's chunked so low, Cybergromp is just one shot, and Postmortem gets the Call of the Forge bar. God shut down by Levi. There's the rest of the follow-up. It is it. This is a convincing and dominating win for Butler in their season opener. Levi might go down, but the rest of the team is here to kill off the Nexus turrets. Geeksbro will put up one final effort, but it is an ace for Kim. It is a 23-minute win for Butler as they start off the season strong.
Absolutely brutal, able to secure the victory with deathly precision. They're able to find all the right plays, got up to just about 20,000 gold lead there at the end of the game, enough to buy a Magi's on your Blitzcrank, enough to set up the whole team for success. And I think Nat Dog was probably the strongest player throughout that game, but there's just so many good performances coming through from Butler that it's hard to choose one.
Yeah, I completely agree. It felt like the entire team was just in sync. We'd see Noodly coordinating the ultimates from up top. We saw just so much pressure out of the bot side, Nat Dog facilitating so much of it. And of course, Kim early on making the jungle such an inhospitable place for Marquette to live that it felt from just the first few minutes, the game was over. And I think it all goes back to draft where that Lulu Kog'Maw is so vulnerable and it gave Butler just so many free options to pick into it.
Definitely going to have to see Marquette adapt into Game Two's draft. Make sure not to get absolutely blasted in one of their lanes like that again, hopefully. I thought post mortem for Marquette did pretty good there, so we'll see if they can build off of that. I like the Orn pick a lot. Definitely a consistent availability in that top lane, going to make it very easy to get into that late game. And we never saw an opportunity to pop off in the team fights. Shot a lot by Levi, but I think that if Postmortem can play like that again, then maybe there's going to be opportunities here for Marquette to come back in game number two.
Completely agree. It's going to come down to some changes, but there were some really nice moments looking ahead for Marquette as they'll need to find a lot more of them to find an answer. So we're going to go to a quick break before coming back with game number 2 of Butler versus Marquette. Welcome back, all you Butler, Marquette, and Big East fans. We just saw Butler take a very, very convincing win against Marquette, as Marquette are really going to need to change things up in the draft to give themselves a shot at bringing this series back.
They are starting off by changing sides. They're going to be on the blue side this time around. I think that we saw with the blue side pickups, with the Karthus priority being an interesting one for Butler, but with their ability to flex throughout the draft, get that counter pick in the bot lane, and then exploit that to its fullest extent. That proved quite effective. So maybe this time around we'll be looking to see the counter pick bot going in favor of Marquette.
Yeah, I just don't want to see them draft such a vulnerable bot lane so early because it felt that that was really where it just opened the door for Butler, where they got that Karthus first pick. They treated it as a very, very true flex, and then they could build the rest of their composition into something early, something aggressive, something that would never let this Lulu cog ever get going. And then with the Cole start, it meant there was no lane presence. So there's nothing else that you can really do if you're Marquette across the map. The team tried to do some what they could, I think, especially post mortem in the top lane, finding solo kills, but it just was not enough.
Well, with that in mind, we're getting into draft for game number two. I expect to see pretty similar bans. I don't think that there was a lot ban worthy out of game number one. We just like throw that whole draft out because it was just the picks were the problem, not the bans.
Yeah, I agree. I think getting rid of the Caitlyn, the Zeri are all good options. They are afraid of the Draven. I can understand how much pressure it provided in that bot lane, and this could be a read that Marquette still want to take some scaling, but don't want to fear the wrath of those Noxian axes, as the Hecarim's still taken off the table, and it's likely, I think, going to be either a Jax or Cassante banned by Marquette, and the opposite taken away by Butler.
Interesting to me that out of the bot lane from last game, it's the Draven that they're picking to ban because I think that Blitzcrank offers a lot more of the threat early on. I mean, Draven's got plenty of the damage, but depending on the support that Draven's with, it's not necessarily quite so oppressive. But every time the Blitzcrank gets locked in, you're expecting to see it win lane. So it makes me wonder if they're prepping a Morgana counter pick.
That's honestly, I think, a pretty good read is I do think that Marquette would like something that's comfortable, like something that's a little bit more known as far as how to play around it and how to play towards it, with I think Morgana just being one of those picks that you get to know and you get pretty comfortable with overall. But it is going to be the Maokai first pick. I think it was a solid pickup for Cyber Gromp. It gave them a lot that they could do across the map. It helped Postmortem get started, but instead of the Draven Blitzcrank, we get an almost as aggressive lane in the Lucian Nami.
It's almost as aggressive, but it looks very different. Lucian Nami wants to win by having the Lucian press the tempo. You're not going to see a lot of the Nami standing in front of the wave. I don't think that it's quite so easy to freeze against. And I also think that it's possible to lock in Ashheimer as a potential answer here. But it's not going to be that, obviously. We see the Tarek lock in. It's going to be maybe more scaling again. Once again, we're seeing a big front line being popped up here, which can be problematic for teams with Lucian Nami if they don't pick DPS in another lane.
Yeah, the Lucian can just get shut down so early and so quickly if there's the right itemization where you can never just fully snowball and access those picks in the back. And I really like this Sivir as an answer. I think it's a little different than a more traditional answer to the Lucian Nami and the Sivir Yumi, where you just truly sit back and concede all that lane space. But I think this does allow for that forward team fighting to work out. It gives them some ways to force fights as the game progresses. And of course, this Sivir going to be so much safer than the Kog'Maw we saw last game.
I of course expect to see the Tarek in that bot lane duo with the Sivir, but I believe there are edge cases where you can play Tarek jungle or something like a
I was
Tarek
gonna
solo
say,
lane.
don't forget Tarek Jungle. It's seen it
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
It
So
it
so
can be
that's out
scary.
there. Now that I've put that out there, it's probably not going to happen. So we'll just shelf that thought until later on in the draft. But the Lilia pickup definitely going to be bringing a lot of tempo in the jungle. When you expect to have priority in your bot lane that you've already picked up, then I think that makes a lot of sense. Just try to get potentially some invades out. We saw a lot of effectiveness last game on the Rek'Sai pickup for Kim. Lilia has some similarities, going to be trying to blaze through the jungle. If you can get some invades going off, that's potentially going to be helpful if the solo lanes can get some push, be able to roam towards you and help out with those.
And I was gonna comment that this Lilia also I think has some flex potential in that we've already seen Noodly has a very, very deep champion pool with the cart this last game, but with the Aurelia locked in, unless we're seeing an Aurelia mid, it should be that Lilia going to the jungle, the Aurelia up to the top lane, and keeping that counter pick for Levi on the table. Now Marquette trying to round out their composition. I'm expecting Postmortem to still get something decently tanky that can contest into this Aurelia. The Ornn, fantastic pickup, had a good performance last game. It blends really well into the rest of the team. And now just this mid lane, I think that the Zillion wasn't a bad idea, but it just didn't quite do enough as far as damage or having an extra threat.
I'm not entirely familiar with Geeked Bros champ pool, but I'd like to see something like a Victor or an Azir Akshan with carry potential, but also it's starting to lock in a lot of physical damage. With that in mind, there could be some itemization against it to just go something like well, let's see. With it being a lot of physical damage, it's not easy for a lot of these champions on the side of Butler to itemize against it. You could get maybe Zonia's on the Lilia, on the Corki potentially, but they have a lot of itemization that's AD, not necessarily physical, because with Corki you're doing magic damage, but you're building AD to get there. So there's not a lot of items that are helpful to have AD and also armor. So it's a little bit more difficult to itemize against it. You just got Guardian Angel, really.
Yeah, I'm thinking Frozen Heart, Riftmaker, Lilia. It's always an option, really, just for the top side. It's really tough to pull off if you're in the jungle because you're not in those one-on-one matchups. But I think with just a complete AD spread coming out of the auction and the Sivir, that there is a use case for maybe a second item, Frozen Heart, or just something to keep that Lilia a little tankier, go for that beefier build because the rest of the team is pretty glass cannon. I mean, for one, I'm Noodly on the Corki, just like I'm removing that because just removing that from my head. I'm not sure if it's actually going to be sent top lane, if it's going to be the Aurelia up in the top lane, but still, that's going to just be interesting. I'm going to wait till game to talk about that one because I want to know where it's going. But Marquette, they've made some really good adjustments. They've got the same jungle top lane pairing that worked so well. They've got some versatility in the mid lane. They've got options and actual farming potential in the bot lane. So looking up.
I think that what I'm seeing here is going to be a very similar situation to last game with the Karthus top, the Corki top, going to have that range advantage, going to be able to get a lot of first strike procs off. I'm going to assume that Noodly is taking this Corki into the top lane, but my initial response to that is, then why not Kale? I think Kale makes a lot of sense in similar situations to Corki, but Kale has trouble like fighting in the mid lane. So if it was mid lane Corki, then I'd be like, all right. But I think that still it's going to work out just fine. Corki's going to scale up pretty effectively. Going to be able to do a lot of poke damage onto the back line with the rockets. That's what's going to be important. It's kind of a poke and assassinate style comp almost here for the side of Butler.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. If you get a good sleep on the Lilia, it allows the engage. If you get a stun from the Aurelia, if you get a chunk out from the Corki, those are all signs to go in, but there's not necessarily just one go button present for Butler. Whereas for Marquette, they have the very obvious go buttons in their top jungle and ADC ultimates. They have reaction capabilities with the Taric and, of course, the execute potential for the auction. So I'm very, very excited to see how these teams run into each other. I think Marquette are giving themselves the tools to work with, and Butler have drafted themselves something that plays to their strengths. So this is going to be a very interesting game too. Butler looking for the clean sweep. Marquette trying to take us to 3. We won't be able to find out until the spec delay finishes up. So we're going to run to a quick break, but don't you guys go anywhere as we'll be back very, very shortly with game 2 of the series.
Why do I, baby, why do I love the way you always leave me? Why do I, baby, why do I love the touch but never love the feeling? Why do I, baby, why do I love the way you always leave me? Why do I, baby, why do I love the touch but never love the feeling? Why do I, baby, why do I? Why do I, baby, why do I? Why do I, baby, why do I love the touch but never love the feeling?
Welcome back. As it was a very, very short break indeed. I didn't lie to you guys. We want to get into this game just as quickly as y'all do. And of course, I just want to see if Marquette can make this draft work. It looks really, really good on paper, especially into what Butler is playing. But we know Butler are all individually talented, and we saw just how big of a lead they could get early on last game.
I think that the most important lane in this game is going to be mid lane. If we can see Geeked Bro getting some CS advantages against Levi here, we can see the push start to develop. We expected a little bit of that last game with the range versus melee matchup, but Zillion not able to punish Yasuo nearly as hard as I expect Akshan to be able to punish an Irelia. So we'll really have to focus on that a lot. If that can kind of hold there for Geeked Bro, if you can get a little bit of a lead, I think that that can be very easily pushed towards the side lanes. As I see that we're getting lane swaps on both sides, it appears.
So I'm not sure if this is the double read out of Marquette where they expected the lane swap, so they wanted to give themselves that advantageous matchup for Geeked Bro, or if they wanted to run the auction into the Corki and let the Ornn have his melee matchup. I'm not 100% sure which direction it went, but still, I think this is overall advantageous for Marquette because this Ornn is still just going to farm up like he would in either matchup, and this auction might have the opportunity for a little extra ranged v melee pressure.
Not a lot of kill threat available for Corki, and I think that there will be a lot of kill threat available in this matchup that has developed into the top lane of the Akshan versus Irelia. Geekbro and Levi both were playing at a pretty decent level last game, especially Levi on the Yasuo, but now we got to see how they are on different style of champions.
Yeah, complete stylistic change for... Excuse me. Geeked Bro is in the bot lane. Mr. Pupper going very low off that level 2 all-in, the famed Lucian Nami experience, where still just level 1 for the bot lane of Marquette. Will be able to catch up, and I think that's just how this lane is going to go. Relegated to the tower will be Marquette, and Butler just trying to find any mistakes and punish any overextensions.
While we've got a little bit of time here, I would like to talk about a few things that I expect to see once we get later on into the game. I think that, importantly, with the Taric ultimate, there's going to be a lot of opportunity to counteract this engage, which is mostly focused on the Lilia. It's very difficult for Butler to engage like you were talking about. They're hoping to land a Swirl Seed and then be able to go with the Lilting Lullaby off of that. But if there's invulnerability to damage for that entire duration because of Taric's ultimate, then it can be very difficult for them to find ways to win that fight. And they just need to get into good position off of the back of that, though. If they can follow that up with a good tidal wave, with a good Vanguard's Edge, then they can start to do damage. They need to be able to find DPS in their comp, though, because they're up against 3 tanks.
And there is a good amount of shred coming from Kim and Noodly. Oh man, I was holding my breath for a moment as the stun nearly landed, and Marquette, we're trying to find some sushi down in the bot side, but won't be able to get that. But back to the previous point where there's a good amount of shred, good amount of percentage damage coming out of Kim and Noodly. Of course, going to depend on their build paths, but still passive for Kim. Noodly has the Gatling gun to help open the door for Carthago. And I think that's going to be the real high points as far as where is that damage coming from. But if post-mortem and Cybergromp are given time, they will just become nigh unkillable monsters unless they're just focused for a few seconds. And if you let that happen, Sivir's going to do what Sivir does.
Absolutely. Another important note is that both of these teams are really strong at taking objectives. Double marksman on the side of Marquette, and then you've got the Aurelia of it. Oh, now we got a fight breaking out bot.
Oh, and it was a beautiful spell shield out of Quickspot to time the bubble, and somehow still gets the cannon. That's an ADCW if I've ever seen it. And there's not too much else to say, just that there's so much pressure constantly coming up as Geekbro took the long way around off of the hook shot. Not sure if that's where he wanted to go, as Cybergrom still takes the crit, hits the bubble, and it's first blood to Carthago once again.
Watch out, Eve. It's time for Kim to appear in the bottom lane, and Carthago is the big beneficiary, going to be able to pick up that first blood and accelerate the pace of this lane, trying to get to that early break point of getting the Noon Quiver off. I think that that's still going to be the case here. Kim looking for another gank bot.
And Pupper missing the stun means that this dive should be easy, breezy, beautiful. And Carthago is going to be feeling like a cover girl after that one. 3 kills up and just 5.5 minutes.
Advertising really does work, guys, but with the bot lane dive coming through with a 3-0-0 Lucian, I really liked the turret aggro juggling there, really showing that they know how to accelerate their advantage, how to push it to the limit, going to be able to get out to a 2.5k gold lead. Noon Quiver pickaxe already complete, so Carthago is feeling really good.
So much strength, and that was what we were watching for, is can this Lucian just become this major threat and start to pressure out the bot lane? Of course, it's still a Sivir, so you can still sit back and farm decently safely if you're quick spot, but Carthago just constantly having that all-in threat, the all-in potential, and the damage to back it up now is so scary.
First Drake now on the map for a little while now. It's a Cloud Drake that could be helpful for anyone that might want to roam between lanes. Particularly Lilia could use that extra movement speed, but I think that there's going to be a lot of pressure on the bot side anyways for Butler, so picking up that first Drake seems to be a given, and it looks like they should be able to do so pretty easily here.
And oh, Pupper just so chunked. Carthago is going to get some extra damage onto quick spot. Decent response off the boomerang blade, but it still just shows the danger that is always present. As Control Ward dropped to contest the Tri-Brush, Kim is going to find that one, and Carthago doesn't even care, doesn't need a jungler, just needs a pair of pistols, as that's going to be a kill in the bot lane. And Call of the Forge God used to try and find Noodly. Flash forward from Geeks Bro, gonna pop the comeuppance. Gotta not get blocked by the tower, and just in time, that'll be an answer across the map.
Good play in the mid lane there to respond here by Marquette, showing that they're not going to be completely playing passively throughout these early stages. And the roam from top down to mid isn't something that we see a lot of, but with a lot of the marksmen that can be played in the top lane, that's a viable path with, you know, like a Quinn or a Vayne. And now we're seeing Akshan do the same, so getting a lot of value there. And getting a kill onto Geek Bro, I was talking earlier about how I think that there's a lot of importance in this lane matchup. And particularly with how the bot lane is going right now, it's crucial for Marquette that they find a point of power on the map, and that might be what they've just found in the top lane.
I think that's definitely what they're trying to do, but Carthago and NatDog continuing this trend. The bubble gets dropped, tidal wave used. I think they were trying to force some sort of dive, but Carthago wasn't on the same page. Not a huge deal, just one cooldown pop. Stun will go down on Carthago as the Cybergrop is waiting in the wings, drops a twisting advance, gets slowed up by the bubble. They still want this one. There's no Taric ulti, but it won't even matter. Pupper will find some revenge onto the support counterpart.
Some supportal combat going down here, able to get another kill. And that will make it a little bit more difficult to continue picking up kills in this bot lane. Almost level 6 now. Cosmic Radiance going to be available very soon. And with a tankier Taric, that's going to be a more difficult task, a more uphill battle. I think we're going to see a Locket of the Iron Solari this game. That's going to make it even more difficult to kill off all of these tanks. And particularly and importantly, the carries, as we see a top lane dive being set up.
And Geek Bro doing what he can, trying to just weaken the wave as much as possible, but there's still so much to work with. Gets caught in the Drowsy. There's going to be the stun to immediately follow up. The damage is coming. Kim's going low, but it does not matter. Good balancing, as we saw earlier. Both of the divers go low, but it's still going to be this top tower that is getting punished.
Be dropped here to at least one plate, if not all the way down. Gonna have a lot of minions, but with the way that the Bulwark passive worked, it could be difficult to finish off. It'll be close.
And attempting to use the stun, I think you've just got to escape with the Sivir ulti at that point. 5 kills now for Carthago, who has a sub 10-minute mythic, and Postmortem trying to play cleanup crew will get one onto Kim, has to try and sniff out Levi, who's gonna drop the stun. Postmortem is still around. The dash happens. Twisting advance, not even really needed, as that'll be an answer for the tower, but it's still just such a ton of gold going over to Butler. Carthago wants number 6. The tidal wave won't secure it, and Quick Spot sent back to safety as Noodly in the meantime has been picking up plates in the mid lane. It is just an investment fiesta for Butler as this does look to be a kill on Noodly once again. The Comeuppance will pick that one up, but still got more than a kill's worth in plate gold while everything was happening.
It doesn't feel like it should be this big of a gold advantage. It's 5,000 now. Can we check the individual gold? Obviously, Carthago's going to be massively ahead, but it seems like there's got to be a lot somewhere else as we're getting forced out Cosmic Radiance in the bot lane, but we see a big advantage in the top lane as well for Levi. Being able to pick up those tower plates is going to make the difference.
Yeah, look like it's just about 1,000 in every roll as Kim going so low. There was a ton of damage chunked out by Geek Bro, nearly able to turn the tides on that one, but just too little, too late. Kim punishes the overextension, and it is all looking under control for Butler.
Gonna be able to pick up another dragon here in just a minute. I'd have to assume they were able to use that Rift Herald effectively. They've had really good objective control throughout this series. I don't think that they've dropped a single objective so far, and with that in mind, they're going to be looking for a play all in top.
All in and post-mortem, doesn't have much to work with, is just going to get ran down by the Aurelia. Nothing else to do after that. No flash used, no flash wasted, as the outer ring is starting to crumble. Bot lane just fell mid lane with just 2 plates left. It's not even 14 minutes, and there's already 2 towers up for Butler.
Be another difficult uphill battle here for Marquette. They do have good scaling once again. We see the Radiant Virtue already completed for post-mortem. Going to be trying to find an impact in some of these team fights upcoming. Going to be another Drake spawning here in just a few seconds. And right on time, Kim is in this bottom side of the map. Teleports coming in. Could be a 5v5 pretty quickly here.
At this point, Marquette's so far behind, I feel like you just have to concede second Drake instead. They want to start the fight. Butler gets things going with the package, and it's an immediate kill. Carthago getting kited. Carthago going down. There's a ton of gold gone, but there's just not enough damage, not enough stats. Still standing for Marquette as Quickspot, the only one left, will get attempted to be ran down by Levi. The rest of Butler will pick up the Baron. And a decent idea, but the numbers advantage, the gold advantage, the positional advantage, too strong for Butler.
Kim just able to blow up the first two, the duo of the Taric and Maokai. Not able to stand up to this Leandry's completion already at 13 minutes. Going to be the second Drake falling as well now. No time even to get off the major abilities, so that really set them on the back foot for the entirety of the fight. Geek Bro able to 1v1 Carthago's Lucian, so that's an upward sign for the future. Eclipse complete now, so going to be able to find a lot of value in some fights, but gotta stay stay alive longer so that you can start reviving your teammates with that passive.
Yeah, and that's going to probably be the biggest point of value, whereas if Marquette can find a way to find some even fights, some tighter fights where maybe a couple reses can come out from Geek Bro, let them get back onto the map that much faster. It's the way back in. But at this point, 14 minutes in, so much of the map is already gone. You just got to play Wave Clear Simulator with Quick Spot, as that's another chunk going down onto the mid tower.
Fortunately, if anyone's good at Wave Clear Simulator, it's going to be a Sivir, so they're going to have a lot of opportunity to stall this game out. Butler showed last game that they're pretty good at closing out, so we'll see if they can continue that with game number 2. But if they end up letting it go for too long, then we could be in a spot where Marquette can come back in this game.
I think Butler just trying to work on what they were really struggling with last season, which was making sure that when they were ahead, they could end games. Is really them and Villanova that they could go even with or ahead of some of those top 4 teams, and then you reach the mid game and they just fall apart. And it's maybe moments like this where Noodly has to flash away from both tanks. There's support waiting in the wings, but still a scary second, and Geek Bro gonna get spotted out, flees the Lilting Lullaby, and Pupper has to retreat behind his own tier 1, and just that entire side of the jungle locked down for Butler.
A 5-man rotation towards the top side here for Marquette. It's almost like they want to contest for Herald.
Seems like it, as this might be a timing that Butler wasn't expecting. The culling is dropped. The Radiant Virtue gets so many members inside. All 5 members of Marquette, as that's a shutdown onto Kim. In the meantime, Levi still far and away, but Carthago's the one that matters. The Gale Force gets one, and now they're just continuing to run down the rest of the team. Too much damage, too much money, and it's going to be Butler still walking away with the fight despite the numbers disadvantage.
I was a bit bearish on this team comp being picked up by Butler, but one thing it's got really going for them is that from ahead, they are very difficult to escape from in any fight situation, and they're very difficult to kill off as well because they've got a lot of mobility, they've got a lot of long-range spells, and even long-range engage with the Lilia. We saw the idea with the Cosmic Radiance of being able to protect a bunch of members at the beginning of that fight. Looked pretty good for Marquette, but on the back end, it just gets absolutely swept away by Butler, who still hasn't taken the Rift Herald yet, but now we got another fight.
And Noodley's trying to win the 1v1. Geeked Bro continues to win it out instead. Butler's going to pick up that Herald that they were playing for and fighting for, whereas Quickspot and Popper, I think they're just going to be happy getting that wave past the river.
Going to be able to push that one out. And another kill going over to Geeked Bro. It's a nice little addendum here for the side of Marquette. Going to be scaling up the carry pick. Going to be looking for even more healing. I think it's going to be Blade of the Ruin King second. I'm not 100% on that, but it looks like that's a pretty positive selection. And with that in mind, we're going to keep our eyes on Postmortem as well to see once those upgrades start to be able to come through. Definitely expect a lot of priority to get that upgraded Eclipse.
Oh man, and just the flash forward Aurelia ulti into the culling. Still hasn't found a kill, and actually this might have been an overdive from Levi. The re-engage is here, and these are the kind of throws that you can't give away if your Butler is a stun on the Carthago, gets stunned back up off of the cleanse, and this is very, very tight. The Brittle used. Kim gets 3, and that's the lilting lullaby that they wanted as Carthago lives long enough, and they turn a throw into a teamfight win as Noodly trying to pick up Postmortem, and Cyberdrop just barely able to escape. It's another decent idea from Marquette, and it gets completely demolished as Postmortem just gonna walk this one out, getting raced down, and it will be Kim that picks up the kill.
An absolutely nasty flash blooming blows coming out from Kim, able to land the lilting lullaby on the back end and just sweep that fight up. Going to be a good break point starting to come through as well. We see Newtley now on 2 items, having that Mana upgraded to the Muramana, going to be in a very good position here. And I think that for the entirety of Butler, they're in a spot where they have some strength over their lane counterparts. They've got a lot of gold to work with. And with Baron coming onto the map in just over a minute here, that may be their next point of attack.
They've been so tight on objectives this entire series. 3 Drakes up at 18 minutes. They have been on timer after timer, as every single time Marquette try to contest and Marquette fall further behind. Now about 12k gold down. Levi just trying to mess around as Cyberdrop just wants to find his buddy and get some gold, and will be able to kill that Gromp as well, as Levi support from that dog just waiting for a bubble. That's going to be Gromp getting very low. Carthago will add a couple autos into the mix, find the kill, the culling to race through the wave. And this may be another one as Geeked Bro gets sent straight back to the Shadow Realm. Levi wants number 3, and it's just going to be a spell shield from Quickspot to escape it. But it's pressure on all fronts. The Rift Herald, the package, the kill already under tower before the Virtue can be dropped. And Postmortem is just caught in a terrible spot. The ace will come out from Kim, and a team, just a series of fights, turn into an inhibitor.
An inhibitor, and I wonder if they can't just push for more here. They're up against 1. It's going to be 2. Geek Bro's going to come back up. Looks like they're just going to go for a second inhibitor. I think that this is the right play. Baron now on the map as well. They don't want to overstay and get aced into some sort of counter Baron. Geek Bro looking to push him off of the inhibitor, and now another fight could be on the horizon.
Certainly possible, but not if Geek Bro just gets poked out by Noodly. There's too much damage up, and That will be it. The retreat is here from Butler. The dogs are going back to base, and I think they just want this Baron, want to walk it down, take 2 very, very quick wins, and make a statement to the rest of the league that this Butler squad is here to play.
Gonna have to secure the victory before we can give it to them, but they are in a very good position. They've shown throughout the early games particularly that they've got a lot of strengths. They're going to be pretty well coordinated here also. We've seen a lot of good dives coming out. Now Newly in the 1v1.
Oh, and he's been winning it all day, but this time the comeuppance has a few minions to go through before finding the extra damage. The boomerang goes out, doesn't quite find it, no hook to use, and it will just be a draw for now. Quick Spot gets 1 shot. The tidal wave finds number 2 onto Pupper. He's invulnerable for just a couple seconds longer. Carthago completes the bot lane sweep, and Cybergrom trying to run away, but there is so much damage. The 3-item Lucian is too massive this early on. There's 1 super, and they want to march it on home. The Call of Forge got used to try and do something, to try and get a reset, try and get a kill onto Carthago, but it's too little, too late. Everything is turning in. Everyone is here. It's just like Smash Ultimate. Geek Bro will go down. Brings back a lot from the grave, actually, and that means that this game isn't quite over. It feels all but over, but there is still a Nexus that needs to fall, and with the second tower and Levi diving back in, it looks like it will. NatDog forced out. The sleep works out for Noodly to find the ace. It was scary for a second, but it is a comfortable win for Butler. 23 minutes in game 1, 22-17 in game number 2. Consistency is king, and Butler have proved that.
This is what I call a shutout. It's not a complete perfect game. You gave up some kills, but you didn't give up any objectives. No towers, no Barons, no Rift Heralds, and no Dragons. So complete shutout on the side of Butler that game. They're able to collapse, and at the end there, the revives come through, but they were revived just to die again. And Marquette, a rough start to the season, but it's a long season, so there's going to be opportunities for them to improve throughout the split. Hopefully they're going to come back stronger on the back end of this. They showed flashes. Postmortem's Ornn was pretty good. The Cyber Gromps Maokai had some good ultimates coming out. But at the end of the day, Butler proved to be the better team and definitely deserved this victory 2-0 and looking pretty strong in it.
Yeah, looking incredibly strong against Marquette. As I've just heard from production that we are going to get to speak with the winners, so we're going to go to a very, very quick break to get that one set up, as we'll be able to hear from Butler in the aftermath of this clean 2-0 sweep against Marquette.